The government report predicts more frequent and intense heat waves and severe storms. It has received widespread media coverage and praise from environmental groups. Carter Roberts is president of the World Wildlife Fund, an environmental organization active in more than 100 countries. He says the report not only confirms previous studies, but is coming out at the perfect time.
All eyes are on the U.S. right now to see what the U.S. will do in passing legislation to solve climate change, to reduce our emissions here in the U.S.
Roberts says the report clearly shows the consequences of inaction. He says the top priority is to reduce deforestation and increase energy efficiency.
If we can create the right legislative framework to solve climate change, it will create the foundation of a new economy for the U.S. and to spark innovation.
Although the report was presented as nonpartisan, Washington conservatives contested. David Kreutzer is a political analyst at the Heritage Foundation. He says the report is aimed solely at building support for President Obama's policies and the vote in Congress on the American Clean Energy and Security Act, expected next week.
I think it's fairly clear that there's a political component to this. Will this report switch votes over to be in favor of the climate change legislation? I don't think so.
Kreutzer says the economic costs of curtailing emissions will be far greater than any negative effects of climate change, which he considers a natural event and not the result of man-made activity. The report was produced by experts from 13 government agencies and several universities and research institutes. Jane Luchenko is at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Human-induced climate change is a reality. Not only in remote polar regions and in small tropical islands, but every place around the country, in our own backyards. Climate change is happening. It's happening now.
The panel agreed that the U.S. is beginning to see extreme heat waves and intense rains, and it predicts that floods, health, and economic impacts will increase dramatically. Jerry Melillo directs the Ecosystems Center at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. He says rising sea levels will be especially damaging in coastal areas.
6 of the nation's top 10 freight gateways will be threatened by sea level rise. 7 of the 10 largest ports are located on the Gulf Coast. The region is also home to the U.S. oil and gas industry, and 2/3, that is 2/3 of all of the U.S. oil imports, are transported through this region.
Livestock and crop production will face new challenges. Melillo says rising temperatures will allow weeds, insects, and pathogens to multiply.
These climate-related problems with insects and pathogens mean that more pesticides or other means of pest control will be needed.
The scientific panel says the impact of climate change will continue to grow if greenhouse emissions remain unchecked, and the future depends on actions we take now. For producer Zulima Palacio, I'm Carol Pearson, VOA News.